get good at the live experience and what you're bringing to the audience and the crowd, and what you can bring basically value wise to a promoter to be able to want to put you onto a show. If a band can come across as seasoned, I'm more likely to put them on other gigs because I know they're professional. They're going to run on time. They're going to pay attention to the set times and the schedule. They're not going to be messing around with their drum kit too long, and you know what I'm saying, things like that.
Ghost Cult Magazine is welcoming in Estevan Vega from Capulet Promotions or
Capulet Entertainment.
Productions.
Entertainment. Capulet
Entertainment. Okay,
Yeah,
it's one of those. Sorry.
it's all good.
Good to get it right. We are getting ready. You are preparing this amazing festival, Capulet Fest. It's happened before. It's back again this year in Connecticut, and it's a super cool mix of bands. I think, as I mentioned, when I lived in the Northeast, and I've come back east a couple of times over the years. I think you've been doing this a long time, probably, and have put this fest together quite a few times. And this looks like just a banger of a lineup. So first of all, nice to meet you and welcome to our little corner of the metal world. And I want to just give people an idea, like if you don't mind giving us your if this was a comic book, your life story. Let's get the origin story issue out of the way. How did you get into this? How did you form this company? What are the things you've done in the past that you want to shout out that you're proud of?
Sure. So I've been a fan of music since I was probably, well, I mean, everyone's a fan of music since they were a kid, but I've been a fan of rock music since probably I was like 7 or 8 years old. Progressively, my musical taste has evolved and gotten a little heavier over the years. And I've been wanting to do something like this for about 10 years. But before I got into the music promotions, I'm also an author. So I wrote several books. And during one of the release parties for one of the books, I had a concert, and I had several, rock alternative bands. And there was somebody who had read one of my books that heard about that show or went to that show. And he came up to me at a book signing and he's like, "Hey, man, I'm starting to get into promoting shows. Is this something that you might want to do? Or have you ever considered doing it like long term?" And I said, "Well, I love music. Sure." And so we got together, and we started, there was another person involved as well. There was three of us, and we started brainstorming ideas. I came up with the name Capulet Entertainment. He had a different name. And then we got our first lineup together for our first show. This is way back in December of 2012. And the weird thing is that like the week of the show, I got a text or an email, and he's basically like, "Yeah, we're both out. We don't have the money for this, so sorry." And I'm like, "Dude, we got everything lined up, man. Like the headliner, the opening bands. I had the venue, put a deposit on, started promoting all the stuff." And I'm like, "Okay, awesome." So my first show, that happened, and the headliner didn't show up. And so I had all these bands play, and then there was no headliner. And then I found out later that weekend, the band is like, "Oh yeah, our bad. We double booked the show." I'm like, it would have been nice if you told me, you know. So that was the first show I did as Capulet, basically. And I did another bunch of shows for like the next following year. And I was literally, I was a young college student. I was surviving I was living at my dad's place, surviving on what I made with my books, basically. So if I did a book signing, I funneled that money, whatever I made from that, into the next show. And so naturally, things were very tight. I was living on the Taco Bell menu at the time, which was like the $2 or $3 menu. My girlfriend and I, who's not my wife, we would eat that like it was going out of style. So naturally, I gained a little bit of weight during that chunk of time. But I was following my passions. I love writing books, I love promoting that, and then I love music. So it was kind of like a merging of the two passions together. But eventually I had to kind of throw in the towel for a time because I just couldn't make it. And so fast forward a few more years, I became a barber, worked with my father side by side running the business, and that allowed me to put money kind of in my pocket, pay for my own rent. I moved out, and fast forward another couple of years, I resurrected Capulet Entertainment. And 2018, we came back strong, and we had a bunch of shows between then, leading right up to COVID. And then COVID shot us down again. And I already had like 2 or 3 shows already booked, the venues booked, deposits in. and I had to cancel all those shows because 2020 was just a, a certain kind of cluster. And so then I lost 2 more years, or another year and a half, basically. Came back in at the end of 2021, and then I was beginning. We did a Christmas show, which is a smaller gig, and then about 7 or 8 months later, we did the first Capulet Fest. So it was kind of cool that it took about 10 years for Capulet Fest to kind of happen. But I remember we were standing outside of a small nightclub. It was a venue called the Heirloom in Danbury, with some buddies of mine. And I was talking to them, and I'm like, man, what I envision is one day doing something like a Warp Tour, for a festival. It was kind of like a pie in the sky pipe dream at the time, and now it's reality. So it's pretty cool. So that's the short and sweet version of it.
Amazing. What a journey. By the way, let me, I didn't realize you were also a published author. What kind of writing do you do? What's the nature of your books?
Yeah, it falls somewhere in the realm of supernatural, sci-fi, psychological thrillers, in the vein of Dean Koontz, Stephen King, Ted Dekker, that kind of stuff. So yeah, the first concert that I promoted was when my book Arson came out. It's about a teenager who has the power to create and manipulate fire, similar to like X-Men, more kind of coming of age. So yeah.
That's amazing. I should connect you with my friends down at Spooky Empire Con. They always have like
Oh,
an
that's in Florida, right?
yeah, they always have an author track. We were guests there
Yeah.
one year where we did a panel on music, metal music and horror films and stuff.
Oh,
And
sweet.
they also have tremendous writers who I'm friends with a bunch of. So that's cool. Maybe I can connect you with them, and definitely have your wonderful PR send us your links for your books and stuff. We'll link that all in the description. Well,
Yeah,
as
that'd be
long as
great.
along with the festival stuff and your entertainment company. Super cool, man. I think as anybody who's played in bands, I played in bands for a long time. When you book a show yourself, I have put on some charity festivals and concerts. It's hard, right? It's just hard in
Yes,
general.
it
I've
is.
had that same arc where someone pulls out at the last minute. Oh, I didn't realize my deal is an exclusive for 6 months somewhere else. I don't think the average non-band person appreciates how hard it is to book these things. So before we delve into this lineup, so obviously we heard, obviously COVID's a whole weird outlier, but
Yeah.
generally speaking, if you're going to book 2024, have
Yep.
you already started, and what does that look like?
We have ideas of who we want to scout out for that. But we have not officially sent out offers or anything yet. Right now, we're just working on the ideal list of who we want to target for that. We're hoping
Very
that
well.
we're hoping that fans, let us know who they want to see, basically. And
Right on.
hopefully it meshes with who we're targeting, and
How
we can
can
always make
can fans
adjustments
find
as
you
needed.
on social media and pitch you for 24 already? Or
We have gotten a few requests. Yes.
okay.
Yes.
That's killer. So let's talk about this. If you'll permit me for a second, let's talk about this lineup, man. This lineup is a banger. First and
Thanks, man.
foremost, day one, Memphis May Fire and Norma Jean. I just saw Norma Jean earlier in the spring,
Yep.
and they were just crushing it. Obviously,
Yep.
they're
I
playing a
saw
lot
that
of
tour too in Boston. I saw that tour.
so good. They're still so consistent and great. It really
Yep.
blows my mind. But a Skylit Drive playing Wires in Full, unbelievable.
Yep.
Secrets, killer band, very underrated for Fallen Dreams, Until I Wake, Famous Last Words, who I think put out a brand new cover today. Catch Your Breath, Spoken, Outline in Color, Set for the Fall, Versus Me, Saul, amazing band. We've interviewed them before. Nerve, Awake at Last, Varsity, also killer. The Homies in Dead by Wednesday. Shout out to Salt of the Earth Records from Connecticut. Nowhere
Yep.
Left and Magnets for Maniacs. And that's just one day. That's just Saturday, July 1st. And then day two, like it's like my 2000s dream lineup. All That Remains and Amberlin. Amberlin is killer. We've covered them like most of their career. All That Remains also. Emery, Woe Is Me, Savage Hands, Picturesque, Within the Ruins, Who Crush,
Yep.
Convictions, Any Given Sin, Dreamwake, Horizon Theory, Kingsman, Uncured, Kill the Imposter, also awesome. Rise Among Rivals, Destroy, Create, Little Us, Saved by Scarlet and Gina Fritz. So it's very diverse. A lot of metalcore, a lot of hardcore, a lot of just diverse, great bands, rock, everything in there. And like I feel what you're saying, it does have like a little Warped Tour vibe there.
I was wanting something that pulled from like multiple genres, but all within the rock framework. You know, I wanted the scene bands, quote unquote scene bands. I wanted the alternative bands. I wanted the hard rock bands. I wanted the metal fans or bands rather. And I wanted kind of everything in between. And so I'm hoping that, you know, everyone digs it as much as we do.
Right on. And I've seen, over the years, like I think that lineup of bands, that amount of bands is the right amount of bands for a day. If you want to, I'm not familiar with the venue, so if you want to lay on me the layout, if it's
Yeah,
multiple stages, if it's rotating, feel free to share the arrangement so fans get a flavor of what they can expect if they're coming.
definitely. So we're gonna have two stages both days. We have an outside stage, we have an inside stage, and the inside stage is actually going to be built inside of a massive, like I think it's 28 or 30 bay garage because it's at a speedway, right? So we're kind of converting this speedway into a rock arena for the weekend, which I think is sick. So yeah, we're taking this massive garage and we're building a stage inside of it. We're gonna have killer sound, killer lights. We're gonna have LED walls on both stages. And then the outside stage is basically like one of those Optimus Prime trucks that kind of converts into a big ass stage. And so that's going to be sick too. In between both stages, we have like a little vendor merch area. So all the bands are going to have merch. We're going to have Capulet Fest merch. And then we have other vendors like Born Dead Clothing and Freaks Attic, and we have others lined up too. And it's going to be just great. And then before the headliners go both nights, we're going to have a crazy fireworks spectacular. 10 to 15 minutes fireworks, because obviously it's the 4th. We got to do something cool like that. And yeah, we're gonna have some local radio personalities from Radio 104. They're gonna be kind of emceeing the event. We're gonna have other podcasters and other interviewers similar to like what we're doing here at the event, interviewing the bands, interviewing the crowds, and it's just gonna be an awesome time. People are gonna want to come for sure.
Killer. I also have to appreciate the value you're packing into this thing because, these are tough times and people have to choose where to spend their money.
Yep.
And obviously, with a lot of different bands and a diverse lineup, you might get a nice mix of a draw of different people, and hopefully, people will stay and enjoy. I can't imagine somebody, coming to see their friends at like noon and then not staying the rest of the day. But you never know. People are
I know. How are
working.
you not going to see All That Remains or Memphis?
Oh
It's like
man,
you
yeah.
got
I
to
mean,
stay.
yeah. I mean, All That Remains is great live. Amberlin is one of the best bands I've ever seen actually live. As is
Awesome.
Norma Jean, as I mentioned. Emery's great, very
Yep.
energetic, especially the newer stuff they're doing too. It's super groovy. So yeah, I love the value you're giving for the money, and I think that's important to talk about. Like it's not cheap, but it's not overpriced. We were just talking
Mm.
offline about a couple of major festivals that are very pricey, and I understand why, location and certain amenities that they're
And
trying
and
to
to put
provide
these
for,
events on is
to
just
put
a
them
lot of
on,
money.
licensing,
Yeah.
insurance, all these
Yeah.
things that I don't think, like I said, it's not the same as just putting a few bands on at the VFW. This is a major undertaking and takes a lot of partnerships and probably cooperations you have to secure long in advance.
Yep.
So good job there on the price point, and good job there on the experience. Because I think that's
Thanks,
the
man.
thing. I
Yeah.
think anybody could put on a show, but to give fans an experience, something to look forward to. And I think also, like you mentioned about merch and vendors and food, those things are expected now. You can't
Yeah.
just kind of cheap out on that stuff. I think you have to give fans a little bang for their buck. And if you're going to ask them to pay for something, they need to make sure it feels appropriate. We've all
Yep.
seen the Fire Fest documentary. I was a refugee of both Woodstock 94 and 99. I can tell you all about that stuff. And
Yeah,
there's a
I watched that documentary too, and that scared the crap out of me. I'm like, please do not resurrect any burning towers or anything like that.
nah, yeah,
They'll
right.
just
That unlikely. I mean, I will tell you, I was at the Ozfest Nodfest and people were like starting, it was cold and they had heat fixtures in the field. Like it said, it was an amphitheater. So,
Yep.
you have like the seats and the pit and then a lawn. And the lawn is vast, which leads to other stages and a thoroughfare. But people were like setting fires and they had to make I forgot who it was. It might have been Corey Taylor had to make an announcement like, dudes, if you don't stop burning shit, we have to shut the show down. He was very dry about it. I expected him to
Yeah.
have puns, but he was just like, I know you guys want to see the fire. The fire's on the stage. not on the ground. Please, it's California. You can set this whole place on fire accidentally.
Yep.
Don't do it. Like, there's Los Angeles areas, not quite the timber areas, but still scary. And in terms of like risk, obviously, do you just like what preparations and things do you put in place to just mitigate risk during the festival? Like, I imagine you are working the whole festival. I don't
Yep.
imagine you get to chill and enjoy much of it, right? You're working the whole
Right.
time.
Last year I was literally running around the whole event, just, oh, they need this. Oh, this person needs that. Oh, this artist needs this thing. It's like, oh my God, it was just so much. So we're gonna have a group of people at the event helping out, volunteers, and then my team of people basically. And then I'll still be running around like a chicken with no head for sure. Hopefully I get to catch some of the bands that I haven't seen in a long time. I haven't seen in Berlin play live in like, I think it's been like a decade, man. It's crazy. Um, so I mean, as far as like mitigating risk, it's basically just try to do as much research as you can. And cross your fingers and do a lot of praying, and hope for the best, basically. Try to look at other bands who have been through the area, see how those shows have done. Basically see what bands haven't traveled through here in a while. Like, it's been a couple years since All That Remains has been through the area, so I really wanted to have them. They're a New England staple, so we definitely wanted to have them. We reached out to them early. And as far as like safety risks and mitigating that, we have state troopers who are going to be at the event. We have EMTs who are going to be at the event. We have firefighters who are going to be there. And honestly, the Speedway has much bigger events than what we're doing at this thing. I mean, the venue holds like 10K plus. It's a pretty big venue. I don't know if it's as big as the one in Vegas, but it's a big, for New England, it's a freaking big venue. And so they do big shows like this all the time. Not concerts, but they do big races, right? And I think it's comparable, similar. From what I've heard from the venue owner, our crowd is actually probably more chill than some of the crowd that comes to races. So they're looking forward to it. We're looking forward to it. It's going to be a blast, man. It's going to be good.
Fun fact: the last Mayhem Fest that I ever went to was in Boston or Mansfield, right?
Yep.
At the what is now the Xfinity Center, and there was the Mayhem Fest one week, and the next week was like Country Fest or something. And the Mayhem Fest had very few arrests and very few complaints, and the Country Fest was like Vikings pillaging England, horrible. I can't even. I'll get demonetized if I list the repercussions and the charges and the arrests. So I can't even go into detail, but I'm just saying, like, punk and metal fans get a bad rep. We're actually generally, we're not, we're wild at the show, but we're mild mannered outside. I think most people are, want to be decent, not harm the festival, not harm, the production, not hurt the band's reputations. Good
I know
points.
it's like, I feel like rock and metal shows are the only shows where like you may hit somebody because you're doing like a mosh or a mosh dance or something, but you're gonna pick that guy up. It's very community based. I feel, from my experience. Anyway.
Yeah, of course, and that's kind of our especially the Northeast. That's our nature. If somebody falls, you pick them up. You don't. Nobody. I've never been a fan of crowd killing. I don't see as much of it. I see more of it out here than I did it back east.
Oh, really?
Honestly,
Wow.
weirdly, but and just in terms of advice, right? What advice, if there are younger bands out there that want to get themselves in position to play festivals, what advice can you give them? How can they pitch you? What are some of the good practices they can do to help themselves with their profile so they would be attractive to someone like you to book?
Okay, so I think you definitely have to play a bunch of shows. Get good, I would say. Get good at the live experience and what you're bringing to the audience and the crowd, and what you can bring basically value wise to a promoter to be able to want to put you onto a show. If a band can come across as seasoned, I'm more likely to put them on other gigs because I know they're professional. They're going to run on time. They're going to pay attention to the set times and the schedule. You know, they're not going to be messing around with their drum kit too long, and you know what I'm saying, things like that. Um, and also a good for more for local shows, but for festivals too. But don't be the first band to hightail it out of there. You know, if there's a 5-band lineup, you know, and you play second, stick around, you know, until the headliner's on and show respect to the whole room. You know, that's a big one for me for local shows. But apart from building your skill set on your stage presence and all that, I would say, you know, they in this day and age, I feel like you need to have music out there. You know, if you want to play a festival, like you got to have singles out on Spotify, on YouTube. You got to have an EP or something. You know, give me a website that I can go and check out your stuff and see some other shows, other gigs that you're playing. You know, I don't want to be the only one that, like, my thing is the only thing on your thing. It just, you know, on your tour date schedule, it just seems like you're not, you know, getting out there. You know, I want a band who's hustling, who's making moves and making stuff happen. And I understand the grind, and I understand that not everyone's Aerosmith, and I understand these things, you know, but like, try to get there. You know, do everything within your power to get good, to have well produced music and well written lyrics and tight instrumentation and the professionalism, like I said, dealing with other band members, dealing with the promoter, dealing with all these things. So like, if this is your second or third show, don't play a festival. It's not going to be good for me. It's not going to be good for your fan base. You know, people are going to be going to see big bands like Memphis or Norma Jean, and then they're going to see your band. And if you're not seasoned, it's going to look negatively on you. You want to put the best foot forward. You know, you want to be tight. You want to be the best you can be vocally and instruments and all that stuff and the professionalism. So I would say for sure, you know, you got your social media presence has got to be there. Your talent's got to be there. Your work ethic's got to be there. Your professionalism's got to be there. It's basically a perfect storm of success. That's my suggestion.
Like
And
that,
then, you know,
storm.
and then hit the festival up.
I'm gonna write that down. A perfect storm of success. That's a good one. That's your hashtag, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, don't be a diva. Definitely have your music available. Out of curiosity, where do you discover new music? Where's the place your ears hear new music?
Instagram, Spotify, YouTube.
See, that's almost everybody, and then maybe TikTok a little bit, but
usually
not so much for rock and metal, but mostly
yep.
Pop music and rap. But that's, yeah, I feel like I don't, you know, Spotify is not good. It's in the news today that the singer of Cradle of Filth called them evil, which is funny coming from him who sings about being evil and a scary evil guy. But he was like, Spotify is the most evil thing in the world. I was like, kind of. I'm a big Bandcamp fan. I know there's some changes going on there, but I feel like Bandcamp is very organic and underground and a good place to have your music, by the way. And they pay the most, and they have, you know, they're bringing back the Bandcamp Fridays later in the year. So good times there.
It's funny, when I was in high school, it was MySpace and Pure Volume, you know, and then obviously you had MTV and you had Fuse. And then I think there was MTVU if you were in college.
Right.
I in college. So I found a lot of bands through those mediums too. But you know, now it's YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Music or Pandora or whatever, you know. But I think Spotify, Instagram, and YouTube, those are my top three for me.
Nice work. I hope nobody is still using Reverb Nation. You shouldn't be.
For mentioning Shy.
Some people, but
we should use initials, and then people have to figure out who we're talking about.
RN. Don't use the RN site. I wish MySpace would come back. I know they've tried a few times, and it was supposed to be a MySpace music. And I know that that's actually the probable destiny of TikTok, is if they get banned as what they are, they're just going to come out. They're working on a new platform that's basically called TikTok Music. That is a Spotify competitor. And also, interestingly enough, 17 music industry entities are suing Twitter because Twitter apparently doesn't feel like they need licenses to give the artists their money and the labels their money. I understand all this is doesn't usually benefit the artist. In the end of the day, it benefits the labels and the rights holders. But Twitter, the only social network without a deal with all these record labels, like, you got to.
Well, you know, they're gonna have to change. It's gonna change. It's just a matter. A lot of these things, it's a matter of time. You know.
Or if you had you were making your top 5 favorite artist ever, irrespective. If you could book your favorite bands ever, who would you book for a
Oh
fest?
shoot.
Money's not an object.
You know, it's funny, like there's some bands that have like broken up that I kind of wish that I booked before they broke up. So I was really big into like all the Tooth and Nail and Solid State bands. Um, Haste the Day is one of them. I miss them. I know they played a couple of reunion shows, but like they're not like together. But them for sure. I've been trying to get Demon Hunter for several shows. um I was a huge fan of Under Oath, like the Define the Great Line era of them. That's still like that's in my top 10 records of all time for me. It was a good blend of like the emo scene plus the hardcore plus the metal. Like it was a good mashup. I love Devil Wears Prada. Man, I'm trying to think. For Today is another one that broke up. I know a lot of these are probably under the like the Christian category, but I grew up in the church, and so like when I was growing up, my parents wouldn't really let me listen to even that stuff, which was tame. My parents were always freaking out, like, why is Estevan so angry? You know, I'm like, I'm not. Well, I am sometimes, but it gets me pumped up, you know. Amber Lynn was one of the bands that was on my dream list, and I'm glad I got them. Emery was on my dream list. I'm glad I got them. Memphis has been on my dream list. Norma Jean's on my. So I got 4 bands who are on my dream list. What else? Dang it. See, like if I go through my media library, I mean, I would love to book like Chevelle. That would be sick. Breaking Benjamin would be sick. I love Skillet. I've been a fan of Skillet. I actually prefer their heavier stuff from their past, but I still like the new stuff too. I just, but I think that's a good lineup right there. A Day to Remember, that would be sick to have them. There's a lot. There's so many bands I love, dude. It's hard to just narrow it down, but that's a good lineup right there. If I could get all those bands to do a show.
Right on. John Cooper has a side project that's like the heavier early Skillet stuff now.
Yep.
You should check. He put an EP out like a year and a half ago. That's super killer. And I'm a fan.
I think I heard some of those songs.
We've interviewed them a bunch of times. Well, he was like, people don't realize, first of all, I'm a guitar player first, not just a guy on stage yelling into a mic and doing the smoke things. He's like, I actually am a guitar player. And he's like, and I love like extreme metal and thrash metal. And he's like, I grew up doing all that. I just don't channel it into this band. So super interesting stuff. And Skillet's great live, and they're good people. I've hung out with them. We've interviewed John a whole bunch of times. So yeah, that's really cool. I'm glad you shared all that with us, and we're super excited to help you promote this festival, man. If you got any final thoughts or anything you want to shout out to fans who are on the fence about coming out, they clearly should come out based on this conversation. Definitely. But if you want to share anything, any final thoughts, we're here for it.
Yeah, definitely. I would say check out the website, capuletfest.com. It's got all the info that you need. It's got info on, it's got the full lineup. It's got info on lodging. It's got info, basically any FAQs you might have. Feel free to reach out to us. There's an email link on there. If there's any questions that you don't feel were answered on the website, hit us up, let us know. We'll get back to you guys as soon as possible. As far as other info about the show and tickets, we have day passes, we have weekend passes. You save a little bit of money if you buy the weekend pass. We also have meet and greet add-ons. 6 of the bands are doing meet and greets, which will be scheduled soon. And then we also have VIP add-ons, better parking and additional amenities, free festival merch, that sort of thing. And then if you want the whole shebang, everything, I would recommend the Capulet Royal Pass. It's got everything that I just mentioned. It's got the tickets, it's got the better parking, it's got the meet and greet options. It's the best deal. So I would recommend the Capulet Royal Pass. That's going to be your best bet. It's going to be the best experience.
Amazing stuff. Thanks so much for putting this together. Thank you so much for being a fan first and then putting this awesome experience and festival together for people. We'll be happy to share it. Nice to meet you. And thanks for sharing your story with Ghost Cult. We appreciate it.
Dude, thanks so much for having me. This was great.